Okay, all right, we're on our last representative group for the invertebrate lab, and this will be phylum Echinodermata. Echinodermata, what you typically think of when you look at echinoderms, are starfish and sea urchins, which does comprise a large part of this group. So looking at Echinodermata, characteristics of Echinodermata are they are more closely related to chordates than any of the other phylums. This is a deuterostome group. This means that their mouth develops second, not first. So their mouth develops second. So this group is just the phylum just before phylum Chordata, which we'll hit in the next lab, and that's our group. In echinoderms, the characteristic development with echinoderms is as larvae, when they are free swimming larvae, they are actually bilateral. So they are counted in the bilateral group, but their adult form is radial. So radial, of course, means that you can cut like a pie, but you cut to the center from any particular split or crevice, and all of the arms and legs look alike. So it's more like cutting a pie. Whereas bilateral is you split things down the center and it's symmetrical, left and right sided like we are. But in Echinodermata, it's only the larva that's bilateral, not the adult form. Okay, so moving on to what's typically the adult form and characteristics of the adult form. You have several classes. You have class Holothuroideae, and you're looking at, basically your sea cucumbers, the guys that kind of squirm and roll around on the ocean bottom or in coral crevices, and they look kind of funky. They look sort of like sausages, and they have beautiful coloring, but they just look kind of clumsy. And we do have sort of a sample of a sea cucumber. Unfortunately, when they're out of the water, we do not have some of the colors that we have. So you're taking a look at the sea cucumber, it almost looks, like it's got some kind of tiled appearance, but that fringe area at the bottom, that's the area that filters food, and the whole body sort of squirms and moves. Sort of, it's a type of hydrostatic movement. All right, so they're round, and they can, when they're in the water, they fill up with water and become anywhere from a third to twice to sometimes 3 times the size that you see in the jar. And a lot of the cnidarians work that same way. I got some of that on me. Okay, and then so some of the next groups here, we're going to go down to the sea urchins. I want to come down here to the class Echinoideae, which is sort of a representative class of the name Echinodermata, but it's Echinoideae, and that's your sand dollar and your sea urchin. In our tank here we have a pencil urchin and just your standard spiny urchin, but this one is just your common sea urchin, and as you can see, they do have the spikes are broken. So the spikes that stick out of the shell, which are protection and they help in movement, but mostly protection, are broken off. So the actual body is an exoskeleton of types that the soft tissue is on the inside. Now, characteristics of this group, before I mentioned any more classes, characteristic of this group is their water vascular system with tube feet. The best way to show you that would be a sample of a starfish. So the starfish, they have this type of hard, spiny skin, and usually over the skin there's some sort of thin membranous structure, but their body on the underside, and this has been dyed sort of a dark red, has these clear extension that look like little tubes that inflate and push water out, and inflate and push water out. And this is a water vascular system. So they're not actually using the legs, these hard parts, to move. They're actually using the tube feet, which is like a bunch of little feet underneath like this that move along. So the whole body kind of moves along. And if any of the legs do move, it's those little tube feet moving it. Okay, sort of like an RV in a truck. This is another sample of a larger, different species of starfish. You can see the patterning on that is amazing. It's very symmetrical, kind of beautiful. When it's underwater, it's beautiful colors. And of course, see how deep, I don't know if you can see how deep that goes on the inside. Is that possible? Okay. And that's usually filled with the soft body part. So there are a few organisms that like to flip these guys over and suck out their soft parts. Yeah. And they try not to let anything do that. And then, of course, the starfish themselves can wrap their legs around bivalves and open them up with their tube feet and then suck out their soft parts too. So it's all, you know, food chain, a food web. So again, these guys move on a water vascular system of tube feet that inflate and deflate. It's similar to hydrostatic, but hydrostatic is where the body fills with water and the body is moving, whereas the water tube feet, you're actually moving on the tiny tube feet underneath the body. So it's like us walking on our feet. So they're more directional, they can be more directional in their movement towards prey. So to get away from predators or to go towards prey, they've developed sort of a unique system with the water vascular system. Okay, so a couple of things about these guys. Again, is the bilateral larva, but the radial adults. 3 tissue types, deuterostome development, like us, phylum Chordata. They have the classic water vascular system, the tube feet, and they have a thin epidermis. All these organisms, when they're in the water and they're alive, they have a thin epidermis that covers that tough, spiny skin. Echino means bumpy, derm means skin, so it's bumpy skin, spiny skin, Echinodermata. Okay, the only other sample, I think, this is a brittle star. We have quite a few of these in Florida. And their legs, of course, you can see the difference between them and your standard starfish. They're really easy to catch. If you go in the estuaries in Florida, you can just scoop your hand through the grasses and you'll come up with a whole slew of these guys. Right? And then you have your sand dollar and your basic sea urchins, which we talked about already. You have also what's called a crinoidea. We see quite a few of those on, and also basket stars. These are amazing. I don't think I have a basket star. No, I don't have a basket star here. But the basket stars are amazing. They have, you can't even count how many arms they have. They have just an amazing, when they extend this whole thing, this is basically furled up right now, but all of these little things can extend out and seem like they're all legs. They're not all legs, but they seem like they are, and it just blends in with the surrounding algae and grasses, and they just look like part of the environment, so it's part of their camouflage. Okay, so I think I've mentioned everything about this group, and that's it up through this phylum.